Commission on Race and Access and Opportunity to order. We have with us Brandon White and Logan Schaff, which just they've been fantastic this whole interim, and I'm so grateful for their help and support. And we will have Logan call the roll.
Senator Berg, Senator Herron, Senator Tishner, Representative Brown, Representative Heverin, Representative Kulkarni,
Present via Zoom.
Ms. Baird,
Here.
Mr. Forrester,
Here.
Ms. Justice,
Present.
okay, Ms. Smith, Ms. Smith-Willis,
Here.
Co-Chair Jackson, Co-Chair Mays-Bledsoe.
Here. Thank you. I think when Senator Berg comes in, we'll have quorum to officially approve minutes. But before we do, I just want to take a moment and say Representative Kevin Jackson was hoping to be here today, and he had an event in his district he needed to be at. And Representative Samara Heverin is actually next door, as she is chairing the Families and Children Committee, which I am vice chair of. And so you can only be in one place at one time. And so we're splitting the difference. And if you're wondering the attendance, that is why. So I thought I'd provide some context. We have a number of people on Zoom today, and I appreciate them making the effort to be here. I know it's this time of year gets a little challenging. So I'll wait for the minutes. Can we do it later? Okay, thank you. So then we're going to start with John Cole. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you're going to have a presentation on arts and community in the future in Lexington. So if you'll introduce yourself for the record, and then you have the floor.
Okay, lights on now. Okay. Okay. There you go. I guess this is what happened when this is your initial presentation in this committee. You have these kind of snafus. But good afternoon. Thank you, Senator Mays-Bledsoe, for the invite, and thank you, esteemed committee members, for this privilege and opportunity to come before you today. I would have never dreamed I would be in front of this committee, but I want to thank my state senator, Reginald Thomas, for sitting down with me and giving me encouragement to come before this committee on behalf of what has been a passion for me and the members of my organization and our volunteers and executive staff for over 30 years. So without any further ado, let me jump into the presentation for the sake of time. The title of this presentation is Making a Difference in the Arts, Our Community, and Its Future. And let me again state for the record, my name is John E. Cole III. I'm the president and CEO of the African American Forum. The agenda I have is brief, but it's to the point and concise. I will introduce who we are and what we do, our community impact over the last 30 years, the economic impact of the programs that we have administered over that period, and then talk briefly about the legacy project that we embark upon, and then have some time for Q&A. So, who we are and what we do. The African American Forum was launched on September 21st, 1993 to address the arts and cultural experiential needs of the African American community in Lexington, Fayette, Urban County. And what was so significant about that particular time, if you were in Lexington, is there were very few cultural offerings in our city and region that addressed the African American community specifically. And there were several of us who used to travel to Louisville and other parts of the region like Cincinnati to go and experience whether it was a concert, whether it was any type of program that really addressed who we are and what we are about in our history. So we just decided, hey, we need to do something about it instead of continuing to talk about what we don't have in Lexington. And so as a result, the African American Forum was launched. Now, the African American Forum is a nonprofit 501c3 tax-exempt arts organization based in Lexington, Fayette, Urban County of the Commonwealth. The organization, as I said, was established in 1993, and for over 30 years, the organization has presented arts and cultural programs that have ranged from our signature program, the African American Ball, the Lexus Smooth Jazz Fest, and cultural performances at the historic Opera House, and so much more. Additional information about the organization and what we do can be found on our website, aafinc.com. On January 24, 1994, we presented the first of 26 annual African American balls to showcase art, culture, and entertainment. Over the course of a 3-year period from that launch, this became our signature event, and it catapulted the African American Ball into what the Lexington Herald Leader chronicled as the event in the Black community. So when we launched this, it was like, wow, this is something new, it's something different. But then all of a sudden, it began to take a shape, and because of publicity and marketing, it became a point for people to come to dress up, to show themselves off, to experience fashion, to experience art, to experience literary recitals. It covered the whole gamut of what arts is defined as. Now, as we got going, instead of just leaping before we looked, we said to ourselves, we need to find out how we can get broad-based support. So we scheduled a meeting with then the former Dee Fidsdale, or the late Dee Fidsdale, should I say, who was the president and CEO of what was then the Lexington Arts and Cultural Council. It is now LexArts. And we also met with Rick Reno, who was the general manager of Rupp Arena at the time. And we also met with Dick Pardee, who was the director of the Opera House. Why did we do that? Because so often you can jump into something and have a grand opening and a grand closing in the same day and wonder why, you can't pay the bills or you can't pay for the talent. We wanted to understand what that risk was all about. And these 3 individuals gave us an earful. But more than that, they guided us on how we need to be set up. And we chose to set up as a nonprofit 501c3 versus being a for-profit. There are different risks associated with both structures, but we found that the 501c3 format was the best one. And to this day, we don't regret that decision because it served us well. Now, our partnership that we forged with LexArts to this day has been another one of those things that have been a flashpoint because it helped us get set up as a nonprofit within a short period of time. We got our IRS designation within 7 months, and we understood how to begin to develop relationships for funding, corporate sponsorships. All this came by being a member of LexArts. Now, that brings me to our mission and purpose. And what I've done since I was one of the drafters of the mission and purpose, I've made sure that everybody who's a part of an organization can say this and recite this without having to look at it on paper or written out. So the mission and purpose of the African American Forum is to exemplify excellence in promoting awareness of the artistic, cultural, and educational achievements of African Americans, to develop and support programs that embrace cultural diversity, enhance community development, and broaden the opportunities for African Americans to make their highest and best contributions to life in the Lexington Bluegrass region, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and beyond. Now, what's so significant about our mission is people who started out with the African American Ball over the course of its 26-year history, some have gone on to recording contracts, some have gotten into theater. Even my own daughter, who had been a part of the organization, went out to Los Angeles and went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. So the impact, which we never envisioned of how it would touch people's lives, was profound as we look back now 30 years. Now, our activities, events, and programs currently, our signature event now is the LEX Smooth Jazz Concert Series. And basically what this is, it focuses on the jazz genre, which has a history in Lexington. And that has now gone from the Lexus Smooth Jazz Fest, which was a 3-day event that happened once a year. When COVID hit in 2020, we had to shut it down, which was the first time in 20 years we hadn't done an event, and moved to the concept indoors. And what we found is spreading out an event over the course of the year so that you don't have to wait after you experience it for 12 months. This allowed us to now do something quarterly. In the process, to cultivate individual donors, we developed what is now called the Horizon Society Membership Benefits Program. And what this program does is it allows us to cultivate individual donors and people who can give to the organization on a regular basis to help sustain our general operations. The Arts Partnership Program. This is where, when we started the organization, we said we want to give back to people at an early age in the arts, particularly at schools K through 5 and middle schools where children are on 90% free or reduced lunch. And so in doing that, this allows them to have the same kind of experiences for within the inner city and rural areas of Lexington, Fayette County that normally you just don't see because there's just not that base of economics. In other words, if you go to other areas of Lexington, Fayette County, if there is a need for, say, computers or this, and I've seen this during this period of time, parents come together and they write checks and make things happen. This does not necessarily happen in rural elementary schools and inner city elementary schools in Lexington. So we took on that and launched the Arts Partnership Program. Now, over the course of that period of time, we have donated over $100,000 in funds, experiences, and resources that have benefited over 90,000 K through 5 students in middle, as well as, in K through 5. But more so, we reached out to SCAPA, obviously because we're an arts organization, and Carter G. Woodson Academy. They have become the beneficiaries of this program. Okay, I hit the wrong button. Let's see if I can hit escape. I may need some. I don't know what I did. There we go. Okay, now, and then lastly, this is one of our most recent programs, the need to be able to communicate. So often, based on the formats of radio stations, there's not a vehicle to address promotion of what we do, and one of our members has a background in communication. So we launched a radio station that's online called WSJZ, which focuses on smooth jazz, R&B, and classic soul, blues, and gospel. But more than anything, we are able to communicate to our listening audience within Lexington, across the Commonwealth, and beyond. Community impact. From 1994 to 2025, the AAF touched over 60,000 individuals who attended our activities, events, and programs. This does not include the Arts Partnership Program, which impacted over 90,000 individuals, primarily students, during that period of time. Our economic impact from 1994 to 2025, the AAF's programs had an estimated range of $4.5 million that impacted the community through ticket sales, overnight accommodations, food sales at restaurants, and other retail purchases such as clothes, beauty and health care, and other issues, which we had this chronicled with the support of Community Ventures and Visit Lex. Now, as we move forward, our focus areas and what I'm going to propose as a request to this committee, the African American Forum has had a 35-year history of presenting and enhancing the community, specifically in the first council district of the Lexington Fayette County government. This has expanded into the Bluegrass region as well as the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Now, these three focus areas, arts, community development, education. With the arts, the reason I highlight the first district is because the first council district within Lexington Fayette County is where you'll find the most crime, you'll find the most prostitution, you'll find the most homeless, you'll find the most people who are on drugs. This is something that has guided us as to why we have become a beacon, because when you are doing good in an area, it has a way of impacting the community. And so not only has it impacted the community, but people in this area trust us. So now that we've had a great deal of success over a period of time, we now, as we move to our legacy mode, we want to invest back in this area. The other part of the focus area of this project is community development. Culinary has always been an integral part of all the events we do. There's always going to be a food component. And so we have partnerships within this project where we want to add a culinary kitchen, a food court for startup businesses, and a mogul truck to address programs that we may do outside of and within the first district that won't be tied to a physical building. We want to expand our communications through WSJZ to where we have internships. We're reaching young people who have a desire to be in electronic and print and radio. And so with that community development piece, that's our way of touching and giving back and aspiring young people to do what we have paved the way and have tried to do over the last 30 years. And finally, education through sustainability and self-sufficiency. We do this through the Arts Partnership Program, but more importantly, we want to do more outreach to young adults between the age of 14 and 22 through internships and summer jobs initiatives. There are very few summer job initiatives within the First Council District specifically, and so we want to begin to plant that seed as we move into legacy mode and encourage more young people to, instead of walking up and down the streets, which you find a lot in the First District when school's out, give them opportunity to learn how to mix, learn how to take photos, learn how to, if they have an aspiration for anything in the arts, we want to be that vehicle that gives them opportunity. Now, the other aspect of this project, I know from my economic development background, is job creation. A key element to this project is temporary and permanent jobs that we hope to create. Initially in the construction phase, we anticipate 5 to 10 temporary jobs will be created. In the startup phase, we hope that 5 to 10 permanent jobs will be created. And long term, after 3 years, we anticipate 10 sustaining permanent jobs and 5 additional part-time jobs. At the present, the African American Forum has identified 2 sites within the First Council District that would be ideal for this project. One is within the North Broadway corridor. The other is within the East 3rd Street corridor. The North Broadway corridor is our primary area, and this area is technically on Broadway and Loudon Avenue. It's now a vacant building, and this is the building that I will focus what our request is centered around. Uh-oh, looks like we're missing a slide. Sped past the request. So the bottom line is the refunding request that the African American Forum is seeking is a $3 million request to underwrite the cost of purchasing a facility to locate our operations and expand our mission and purpose while addressing underserved populations, specifically in the First Council District. And as I move toward conclusion, our goal in making this request to the Commission on Race and Access to Opportunity is to provide insight of our quest to position the AAF for consideration of a one-time allocation from the Commonwealth. By doing so, it will enable us to elevate our service to our community through a mission-based ministry while leaving a legacy of making a difference in the arts, our community, and its future. Now, I know that was a short, brief presentation, but at least I want to plant the seed on how we want to take what we've done for 30 years and put something permanent in place as we begin to pass the torch over the next 10 years in a leadership capacity. So let me stop there and open it up to questions from this esteemed body.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cole. And the African American Forum has had a large presence in Lexington, and it's amazing to see it's been around that long. When you think about the legacy of that many decades, it's pretty impressive.
Well, we didn't think we'd be around this long, to be honest with you. Again, our objective was to try to address the needs. And what's so interesting, Senator Bledsoe, is at this time, there are more things going on now that are culturally based that impact our community than when we started. So I don't know if that's as a result of what we've done, but we're just happy to see that prosperity continue to grow in our city.
And let me just clarify for commission members, budget requests will come through individual members of the General Assembly, so it's likely to be a Senator Thomas request, but he'd asked to have a platform to kind of share it publicly so we can hear about it with other members. I just wanted to put that out there. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cole? And if you're on Zoom and you have any, please chime in because I can't see you raise your hand. Yes, Senator Karen.
Thank you for your presentation and the work that you all have done over 30 years. That is a long time to be in community and doing work. I do just have a question. Have you all ever requested money from the state, and where do you all typically get your funding from?
This is a first-time request, and we typically get our money through a series of vehicles. I mentioned the Horizon Society because most of our support has come from corporate and community partners. We also have gotten funding from granting agencies and foundations across Kentucky and beyond. And again, this has been a process that has been streamlined because of our relationship with LexArts, our funding association. Just like I know in Louisville and other parts of the state, they have agencies that are strictly in place for helping arts organizations get funded.
Thank you, ma'am. If I have a follow-up. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's phenomenal to have an organization around for 30 years and not ask for money. And so I think that a $3 million ask is not a lot, considering, you know, what it is that you all were looking to do. And so, again, thank you for coming to present, and I look forward to supporting these efforts.
Thank you very much, Senator Herron.
Okay, going once, going twice. Thank you so much again, Mr. Cole. Grateful for your friendship and for what you're doing in the community. And this will be shared outside this forum. So appreciate you taking the time to be with us and share with us today.
The pleasure is truly mine. Thank you again, Senator Bledsoe, and committee members for your time and your patience.
Absolutely. All right, next on our agenda is a discussion of a piece of legislation that Senator Herron has been working on. And you are welcome to present from there or from the podium. It's completely up to you, whatever you're comfortable in. It might be easier if you go down there for Zoom. That's a good point.
He got the seat warm for me. Thank you. Thank you to the committee. I am State Senator Keturah Herron, and I represent the 35th Senate District. And I know that, well, I don't think that we have talked about specifically juvenile justice issues in this committee, this session or this interim. But I know that there are other committees who have talked about juvenile justice, not only this interim, but throughout the last couple of years. And just for the record, for those who do not know, I've worked in juvenile justice for over 20 plus years. I've done everything from case management with families. I worked inside juvenile detention facilities, and I was a court designated worker from 2016 until about 2018 in Jefferson County. And so I had an opportunity to see a lot of the needs and the things that were happening and the things that were not happening as it relates to our kids who are justice involved. And when I was in the House in 2023, I know that there was a lot of conversation about facilities and opening up the facility in Jefferson County, but just kind of just what the whole needs were. We had the situations in Adair County, our facilities were not safe. And so what I had realized was that we are looking to put a lot of money into facilities, but we were not putting money on the backside, or I guess upstream, for prevention, intervention, and reentry. And so I ended up filing a bill when I was in the House that would basically create a fund for that specifically. And so I will refile that bill again this year or next session in the Senate. And basically what it does, it creates a trust account that would be known as the Juvenile Justice Fund. And the fund shall consist of monies received from state appropriations, gifts, grants, and federal dollars. And what it would do would make sure that there would be consistent money at the state level for those intervention services. I believe that we have to move a little bit more upstream in order to address the needs of our kids who are involved. And so this would be for delinquency prevention and early intervention services, providing individual community-based wrapped around services for justice-involved families. It would be for alternatives to detention and reentry services for those kids who are coming out. And what I was able to find or look at while I was doing this is that the top counties that have had complaints from the CDW is Jefferson County's number one. We have Fayette, Davies, Warren, and then Hardin County are the top counties. And then we have two northern Kentucky counties, Campbell and Kenton. And then Boone is also in the list of those top 10s. And so when you think about it, you have community groups who are helping this population of kids who are either providing after school programs or doing things around gun violence prevention. I know One Lex is doing some phenomenal work. It would allow these organizations, whether it's the government entities, city council members, or it would allow nonprofit organizations to actually be able to have access to these dollars. And I think that we as a state, if we're putting all of this money into facilities, that it's our job as well to help on the backside of that. One thing that I learned as I was doing my research, I tried to find out information about how much money the state was currently putting in to these type of services, and I could not get an answer. I asked a couple of different folks, and I did not get an answer. But what I was able to get an answer on is just last year when we redid a budget bill that we spent on facilities, $11 million for McCracken County Juvenile Detention Center, $9.6 million for the Breathitt County Detention Center, and all of this is for facilities. $2.6 million for the Fayette County, and $38.9 million for the Jefferson County facility. And this bill would be asking for $9 million. And so I think that given the different issues that we've heard all summer in different committees, I think that this piece of legislation would help. It's not going to be the sole answer for the issues that we have, but I do think that it is one piece and part of solutions that we can do. And if you all have any questions about the bill itself or just the thoughts behind it, I'm open to answer any of those questions.
All right. Thank you, Senator. It was an interesting idea when I had not seen the legislation until you put it forward. It's really interesting. I'll ask the first one. So if you have a trust done and a national nonprofit or national foundation wants to grant money to it, could they do so? And then maybe a One Lexington applies for grants to the fund. Is that how you envision it, as well as a state as well as an appropriations bill?
Absolutely. That's the way I envision it. And I also think that the state could be very innovative with how we put out RFPs. So given those top counties, if we know that Lexington or Fayette County is having specific issues, then they could put out an RFP specifically for those folks in Fayette County to say that these are the trends that we've seen over the last 18 months. These are the things that we need. And so the fund could put out a specific RFP just for folks in Fayette County to say, we need you all to help address this issue. I also think about what happened earlier this year. I believe we were in Northern Kentucky. I can't remember. I think it was a committee that Representative Moser is a chair of. But we heard about an increase of suicides in young girls. And so I believe that this fund in Northern Kentucky could utilize and say, we've had an increase of suicides with this population. How can we do something specific for this population? And some people will say, well, suicide and juvenile justice. When you think about the traumas that those classmates or family members deal with, this is a way to prevent that. And so it's a very innovative way to address all of these different issues through this.
Fantastic. Does any commission members have any questions?
Madam Chair, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Baird.
Hello. I did have a question, and I am one of those Fayette County folks has our issues up here. And so I wanted to ask just a clarification. So in the they could apply part, is that anybody I heard you talking about how you would envision that, but basically anybody, one, and two, if nobody applies, is that just somewhere in Department of Juvenile Justice if they have a thought about how to do something in terms of prevention, then they request money too? Is that kind of what you were envisioning?
Yeah, I mean, I envisioned it more as a grant, but I mean, I think that, it could be either way, but I think that it makes sense to have it as grant money. But I think that, we could utilize the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee to help inform, and some of our other legislative committees to help inform the department of how that should actually be laid out. So I don't know if that would be something that would have to go through the regs committee to say how that is, but that's the way I envision it. And when I say they, I mean any type of local government entities, law enforcement, nonprofit groups, or even school districts could potentially tap into that fund specifically to deal with and to decrease the number of kids that we're seeing in our juvenile justice system.
And then I think you answered kind of the second part. So the oversight of that would be the juvenile commission that you were talking about how that's administered, who would oversee kind of how the funds were used and that it was effective and all those types of things.
Yes, ma'am. That would be within the Department of Juvenile Justice. And the good thing about it is that it would have to be reported. They would have to report how those dollars are being used to make sure that it is being effective. And so one of the things that I have said for a while, I know that there's been talks about Senate Bill 200 from 2014, that folks feel like that bill did not work. And I think that one of the biggest issues is that the funding piece was not there. And so I think that when you look at how are we spending our dollars and which programs, how are they working, the impact of it, I think that the reporting would go with that to say, in Fayette County, we gave X amount of dollars to these programs, and this is what we've seen from those funds.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course. Mr. Forrester?
Yes, just one question. You answered a few other ones there, so thank you. Why not 10 million instead of 9.6? I'm a banker, so I figured you should round it up.
Yeah.
It seemed like 10 million makes more sense to me instead of 9.6, but that's why I'm on this side of the table.
No, I think that is a great question, and honestly, this is like I said, this is the exact version that I did when I was in the House, and I believe that based on the funding for facilities, that was just the number. But I will definitely make those changes and make it 9 million and say that it was recommended from this committee. Yeah, 10.
This is Yvonne Smith. I think he said make it 10 million.
10. Yes, I'll make it 10.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anybody else on Zoom that has a question? Okay. Thank you so much for bringing it forward. I think it's really interesting and definitely innovative and creative. It's a tough problem, and we've seen it throughout the Commonwealth. And to your point, it's impacting northern Lexington, the east, certainly down in Bowling Green area as well. So it's a statewide problem. So I appreciate it very much.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Sure. Ms. Justice?
Yes. Well, one, I want to applaud the effort. I think that this is definitely something that is needed in our community. There are a lot of youth intervention programs, at least in Jefferson County, but sustainability is always an issue. And as we talk about some of the violence that we're seeing in our community, I haven't checked the stats in a while, but the last time I checked, 40% of all of the victims of gun violence in Jefferson County were under the age of 25. And so having this programming and this service available for individuals at risk of being involved in violence, whether as the perpetrator or the victim, is definitely a necessity for our community. One of the things that we've seen with our youth intervention programming is, of course, we want to reach the right audience. And so we are developing programming that is designed for individuals who are experiencing moderate to high risk factors. But those are also, that's a group of individuals that it's difficult to access. They're not voluntarily joining our programming to help foster, personal and professional growth. And so we've been looking into it. I think I heard you say that you are a former court designated worker. So I was just wondering, do you envision this funding kind of working along with the CDWs so that this can function maybe as a true diversion program so that the funds are flowing to the individuals who are experiencing the highest risk?
Yes, thank you for that comment and question. It's a very good question, and yes, you are correct. So, for those who don't know, currently, if a kid gets placed on diversion, you think about diversion, it's the same as adults. So, if an adult gets a DUI or gets an assault charge, they typically have to take classes, and those adults have to pay for those classes. Well, kids, when they go through diversion, they can't pay for classes, so they may have some type of which has always been one of my downfalls of the CDW office, is that the programming that they have, the courts don't pay for services when it's for kids, if that makes sense. So to your point, Ms. Justice, what this would do would allow the CDW office to work with certain programs to say, if you'll take 10 of our kids, or you create a program for 10 kids doing this, then the CDW office could then access these funds and then give that money to whatever that program is, so those kids could have access to it. So yes, that's exactly how I envision this working, but it's not only just for that. So the CDW office or the administrative office of courts would be able to access that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator, for bringing it forward and for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last item on our agenda is our recommendations for 2026 legislation. Co-Chair Jackson and I met with staff earlier, maybe it was last week, and then we provided the recommendations to commission members for your consideration. We did not get any feedback, so I'm going to assume that you all think we're brilliant and that this was a good representation of the conversations in the interim. Not everything that was discussed in the interim is mentioned or recommended in this document. It is kind of a guiding principle, if you will, of some of the larger themes where there seemed to be the largest amount of support. So what I would love is just to see a motion to support the recommendations from 2025 in totality, if anybody would like to do so.
If there are not any objections, I would like to make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of adopting the recommendations, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Great. Thank you all so much for that. And because we have a quorum now, if I could get a motion to support, actually, before I do that, does anybody have any comments about the recommendations or anything in the interim they would like to add this time before we move on to the last item of approving minutes? Yes, Senator
Chair
Herron.
Bledsoe, I would too. Sorry.
Okay, let me do Senator Herron first, and I'll come to you.
Sounds good.
I just want clarification as far as the recommendations. How does that work? As far as we're saying that we, have these recommendations, will someone from the committee specifically, or one of you, the chairs specifically, file legislation for this, or does this just go to leadership? Just kind of what is that process after we have adopted this? Like, what does that look like?
A good question. As we've done last year and this year, it is more of a recommendation of the commission that these were items we thought were important and worthy of conversation, and that it is up to each individual legislator in the House or Senate in either chamber to present specific ideas they wish to carry and move forward in the session. And if so, they can easily reference back to this was an item discussed in this committee or this commission, similar to how you might reference a testimony from a different committee in the interim. It is a reference point and a guide more than than specific, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, Smith Willis.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That was also one of my questions. Like Senator Herron had said, I also just want to make a comment and say I appreciated spending time with you all this year and learning once again on this committee. And just in terms of accountability, I know that these are recommendations, but I do look forward to having conversations with members of the legislature moving forward, just as a citizen, but also serving this committee to see what we can take out of this committee and bring action to it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Baird?
It's sort of a two-part question. Did we do this also, because that was also my question, did we do this also in 2024? because I was kind of a replacement for last year. Did we do legislative recommendations for 2024 also?
We did, and if you'll and you probably weren't following this as much as the rest of us, but birthing centers, for instance, was one of the ones that we heard last year in testimony that did move forward, and they did reference this commission's blessings. We heard that discussion in the interim, I believe, before you came on. I think that was early on in the interim, so we did do it last year.
Gotcha. And so and then you kind of touched then on my question. Is there some sort of tracking that happens about whether our recommendations are brought forth in an actual legislative bill? Like we have these two, but do we have, is there some sort of other documentation or tracking that says whether or not any legislators actually follow up on any of these?
That is a good question. I don't think we have anything forward facing on our screens or on the LRC website that shows that. I do know that a number of legislators last year did file bills that just may not have gotten all the way through the process, but that were filed legislation in 2020. There were recommendations in 2024 that were then filed in 25, just may not have passed all the way into law. Birthing centers is the one that I do know went through both and was signed. But that's a good idea. I think we keep that kind of internally with Brandon and Logan and staff of making sure that what's heard every interim is continued to be discussed. But I don't know if we formally track that in a way that's public facing. So I will see what we can do there. It's a very good point.
And sorry, they're doing an all page in my office. Sorry. And so maybe, I guess then maybe the question being, if some of these are not, like if we're presenting 15 items and maybe just 2 are even proposed and then none go into law, is there something better that we can do to, whether it's talk to the legislators or find out what else they need, or, you know what I mean? Something like that.
No, you're exactly right. And I think that's we've heard some things again in the interim from year to year that have not changed or maybe haven't gotten us traction. We've brought in different groups, for instance, to tackle the same issue, but maybe from a different perspective. So that's one thing. They don't go away forever. They can sit and percolate a little bit. And then 2, I would just recommend that if you are a citizen member on the commission, to talk to specific legislators about who care about those things too. The ones that are on the commission, those who may not be, who are your representation, and start advocating. So that's kind of a both and answer, if you will. And it kind of just depends on which legislator has time and effort and a passion about those issues, and you kind of have to just find the right ones.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, I don't see anybody. Oh, Ms. Smith-Willis, did you have another question, or are you good?
Oh no, I forgot to turn my camera off. I'm sorry.
Oh, all good. I just want to make sure I recognized you if you wanted to be recognized. So lastly, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting? Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. I want to appreciate so many of you making the time to be here for the commission meetings. They are often not at convenient times. And so I thank you for the dedication of our staff, of Logan and Brandon, who have been so great, as well as our community members. This is one of the few commissions that has community members who participate for free. And so we thank you for sharing your insights and your time with us. And lastly, our next meeting will be June of 2026. Wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, happy holiday season, and Happy New Year. Thanks.
Bye.